which was sent out to staff, and Ron Gastineau and his media art students took it on and decided they wanted to make a project of it. So it started by examining trash cans after meal services, both breakfast before the bell, breakfast after the bell, and lunch. They literally went through the school and all the trash cans and started pulling out whole foods, not, you know, plate waste, but whole foods. And they started cataloging it for us. And so this basically is kind of expanding into quite a program with Ron. In fact, I met with him too right before here. And we're developing a story for the DNHS news show, The Warrior Weekly. In fact, it should be about ready for next week. We're working with the Career Tech Ed on ideas on designing and building sharing stations and classroom sharing boxes. We're developing posters. I shouldn't say we, they are developing posters and other forms of messaging, encouraging high school students to use sharing stations or to take from sharing stations. So I'm really excited about this because this is student kind of driven, student led, and I'm kind of sitting back just going, this is great because we really don't want to contribute more than we need to our landfill. If this food is perfectly fine, kids, you know, throughout the day can have a piece of fruit or have, you know, something to snack on. And the other thing is we can recover some of this food and repurpose it back into our program. All of this that you've heard would not be possible without the dedicated staff that we have in school nutrition. There are probably close to 40 of us. Here are the jobs: our food service assistants, leads, cook bakers, assistant cooks, coordinators, delivery drivers, clerical assistants, secretaries, some of which are in those kitchens at 4:30 in the morning, starting to prepare food for our students. And some of which don't leave until 4:30 in the afternoon. And so I've got this wonderful team of dedicated employees who are sort of behind the scenes. Very few of them are out in the MPRs, but those that are, you know, greeting students for breakfast and lunch, they're a wonderful group, probably a little under-recognized, but I am their biggest cheerleader. And it's with, you know, without them, we wouldn't have the program that we have. So. Are there any questions? Yes?
I have a question. When food has been brought out and breakfast and lunch is over, what do you do for food that's been left over?
Well, so it depends on, that's part of the food recovery program that we're working with. At our central kitchen, where we can control that food that's not been sold to a student, obviously plate waste is plate waste and we can't, that's another whole subject. But if it hasn't been used, it comes back to our kitchen. And we are working, most of which goes in the trash. If it's a hot food, you know, it's cooked, we can't hold that or do anything with that, it's trash. But through the food recovery program, we are starting to recover that food. There's a team of food recovery folks that are coming into the kitchens, and they are, as one of the pictures you may have seen, they're actually scooping up and taking that food, taking it back and freezing it at the Pacific Pantry. And they have a team that's working and identified a need in the community where that food is going. So that's our goal. Our goal, we're starting with our central kitchens where we have more control, but we hope to get out to some of the school sites like Redwood and Smith River and in the in-town schools to start recovering. But the team is small and we're building that team. But yeah, that's the goal. It's perfectly good food that can be recovered.
Well, this food talk is really making me
Yes,
I have some questions. So the first one being, so with the charter school situation that we're giving food to them, are we including them with the CEP program, or how are we benefiting? Are they benefiting from CEP? Or
They're not part of CEP. Actually, Castle Rock, we're vending meals to them.
Okay.
So they have an obligation under AB 1871 to provide at least one meal a day to students who are on campus for at least 2 hours, Sherry, something like that. Well, anyway, USA has opted to become a school nutrition program. So they are kind of like what we are for USA.
With all your paperwork, let me say.
I know.
Awful, Dan.
We weren't dumb. It's such a regulated program, it's crazy. But they opted. But they don't have the capacity to produce meals. So we are selling them, vending meals to them. They are running their own program, but we are vending the meals to them.
Okay, so however.
Castle Rock has opted to not become a school nutrition program. They have opted to just vend meals, and we are vending those meals to them.
And however they disperse them to the students is on
Yes,
their
it's
end.
on them.
And then the second
So
one,
we are just vending.
the second question is, so California is making up like new laws regarding food waste and stuff, like having to separate it soon, and I know that our solid waste is trying to work on that. Have you heard any information from our solid waste, has anyone from solid waste contacted you
we're
about
working
it?
really closely with Solid
Okay.
Waste on the food recovery project. They are part of that, that team that Meredith Knowles and the food recovery project out of program is working with to, yeah. So we are, you know, in a roundabout way. They're really the drivers in this, and we are the source of food for them, and we're really happy to partner with them. But so
Yeah, I just reminded me when we were talking about food waste. I love that you're like doing this and getting it donated. That's like, thank you to the community members that brought it up. Love that. But yeah, just hearing this new law, and we might need to think about it as a district. There's new laws of like how to separate food waste to a different area. They're trying to talk about it right now in solid waste. They have like 2023 of new trash cans just for food waste. So how would that be implemented for us when we have tons of food waste? I didn't realize how much we have. How do we do
well,
that?
we don't produce 4 million.
Right, yeah, we
But,
don't.
I mean, you know, the community does.
Right.
And we're really working. I mean,
Yeah.
it's an education process. I mean, plant food waste is a whole nother
Right.
area
Right.
that we really need to kind of eventually get down there. And that's educating our students about, you know, take what you want, but eat what you take, and not piling on food and throwing it away. It's so wasteful. So, but yes, in terms of, and that's what you're talking about, kind of, it's plate waste, separating
Right,
out
plate
those wastes, and we're talking sort of on the other end,
Yeah.
on the before it becomes a plate. Yes. Question? Yes.
I want to give you public kudos as the executive director of a nonprofit that does food service, the senior center. Whenever our refrigerators have gone down, our freezers have gone down, we call Debbie up, she says, bring the stuff over. She always makes room for us, and it saves us from having food go bad. So she is an awesome, awesome community partner, and I really appreciate that.
You're welcome, anytime.
Is part of the reason for the food waste at the high school of food that hasn't been opened, not plate waste, is that because kids are required to take certain
Yes.
items?
Yes, and that's not going to change, unfortunately. There is
So
no
whether they want,
flexibility.
whether they're gonna eat it or not, they're
There's no
required to take
flexibility,
it.
there is no flexibility in terms of the USDA and the California Department of Education and Nutrition Services. We have a meal pattern, we have components, and they're required to take a minimum number of components. One of the things that we really, you know, we start very young, obviously working with them in the elementaries, and it seems like they do a much better job in the elementary K-8s, and then they get to the middle school and high school, and it kind of, everything that, you know, it kind of goes wayside. But yes, and there's just no getting around that. For me to be able to claim a meal, they have to have, for breakfast, they have to have 3 items, one of which has to be a fruit or fruit. And so we provide juice and fresh fruit and things like that. Maybe they don't want it. But that's where the share stations come into play. And those have been real successful, where kids now know that, okay, I've got to take all 3 things. And we see it at the K-8s. They're really good at it. At the high school, not so. They just kind of do this. And so that's where Ron Gastineau and his media arts students and the student-led team is, I think, going to be really impactful.
I think something that helps with the elementary is that we encourage the kids to get the breakfast item, bring it, and then eat it at recess. So
Sure.
you have it as a snack. Because I
Absolutely.
don't have a snack. Well, then get an extra apple at breakfast. and
Sure,
bring it
they
to
can go to the
snack.
share station and
So
take a
yeah,
couple
so we
pieces of
try and
fruit
encourage
and
that
bring
for
it
the
to their
snack.
classroom and have it later. So, yeah,
difficult, challenging childhood, and there were times that I only ate when I ate a school food. I also remember the stigma behind having to be a reduced or free lunch, and especially as I got older, that was very difficult. And so I just really appreciate that you've pushed for that, and the district has gone with that. My other question is, as far as your employees, because I do notice that you have some turnover in your department, how many of those are like 3.5-hour employees, and how many of those are full-time employees, and how would your department benefit from potentially having some more full-time employees so these dedicated staff could have a career and stay invested here in Del Mar County to serve our children?
Well, good question. Currently, our coordinators, our lead, our cook bakers, our delivery drivers, our secretary, myself, are all full-time benefited positions that range anywhere from 4 hours to 8 hours and anywhere from 181-day contract to 12-month contracts. The rest of my staff are under 4 hours, 3 3/4 or 3.5 hours, non-benefited. So I mean, it's really tough, but I would advocate, I mean, if I could blow us up and start over again, it would be, you know, I could easily see us having 6-hour employees who come and serve breakfast at a school site, take a break, then start working on lunch. And other school districts do that way. Eureka City Schools, Humboldt, other districts. But it is what I inherited, and we have made a lot of progress in increasing hours, creating a lead position that is an 8-hour position, and we're working on it. So, but yeah, I would love to see some of my staff at 3.5 hours, 3 3/4 hours have 2 jobs or 3 jobs just to make a living wage. And so it's really unfortunate. And do I think it would help me retain employees? Absolutely. I just lost one of my favorite, best employees to the Department of Motor Vehicles. I'm so upset. I really want to go work there, but it is an 8-hour full-time position and benefited. And you know, I was happy for her, but sad for us. So it is an issue, one that we've been working on. Little steps.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Ms. Maxwell, school principal presentation.
Okay, and I will stay within my 10 minutes. You know how I am. So my name is Diane Reese. I am the new principal at Best Maxwell School. I was asked to give like a state of the school thing like at the beginning of the year. So I've been there for approximately 3.5 months, and I just want to say I'm already in love with the kids. I enjoy the staff very much, and it's a good place to be. It really is a good school. So we're working on our attendance rate. I've done a year-to-year comparison. This year, I can't take any credit for any of this, but the attendance for 1920 is higher than it was in 1819. I am very interested to see, though, with what's going on right now, where it's going to be for month 7. So we seem to have a trend of a dip in month 5, 6, and then it starts back up again in 7. But with what's going on, we are using A2A to kind of monitor using the START process, and it just to give you kind of an idea, students with disabilities are currently trending down. Their attendance rate is going up, so and we only have 2 medically fragile students who are at 55% or below. The rest of them are bumping up right on that 85 to 90% attendance, which is really good. So just to do a quick comparison of our Ames Web reading scores from fall to winter, we have increased by about 9%. The reading scores are in the low risk category are increasing by 9%. Moving on to math. And we're also doing the same in the math. The low risk category is growing by about 10%. And we are foreshadowing that that's going to be increasing also. I get so nervous when I'm up here, so I apologize. And I'm going to start landing at 747, as Tommy Gilman always would say. So we talk about needs and how we're going to be addressing them. Technology definitely needs to be updated school-wide. SIPS, which is the reading program that we use to teach reading K1, 2, and as part of our interventions, that all needs to be updated to the 3rd edition. There are some things that have been added that are absolutely vital for that. our heaters for the classrooms, and the teacher said, and the bathrooms, and our NPR, we have put in, the systems are old, we know that, and we know that the HVAC systems are going to be replaced this summer. The painting and freshening of the school, I know that's also in the plans for upcoming future, right, Mr. Morgan? Oh, he left. So I know that they're there. So our goals, reducing our chronic absenteeism, and 18-19, according to the California dashboard, in 18-19 the chronic absenteeism was 26.2%. We're currently, as of yesterday, at 23.9%, so which is a reduction of 2%. Again, we don't know how this is all going to play out with what's going on locally. I'm pretty pleased with 3, 4, and 5. They're all above 95% average attendance rate. K1, 2, their K is 91, first grade is 93, and second grade is 92%. So we'll be working on those and working with parents, making sure that they are attending school. We are increasing student achievement based on Ames Web. And do you have any questions? See, 4 minutes.
The board have any questions?
I just want to highlight my kids here. This is a student of the month thing that we did. This is one of our special ed classrooms doing the market economy every day. That's a student assembly. These are our spelling bee kids up here. I am super proud of them. We just had one student take second place in a wrestling tournament last weekend. We had one of our third graders placed third in the spelling bee last week. They are super kids. So any questions for
from the
me?
board? Any questions from the public? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we're going to go into public comments. Opportunity for comments by the public on non-agenda items that are within subject matter jurisdiction of the board. The board values comments received, but the law requires that board members not engage in back and forth conversation on items not listed on the agenda. The board may, at its discretion, refer a matter to administration or calendar the issue for future discussions. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Board bylaws 9323 states individual speakers shall be allowed 3 minutes to address the board on each agenda or non-agenda item. The board shall limit the total time for public input on each item to 20 minutes. Do we have any comments from the public?
I have one. So I'm the custodian coordinator here with the district, and I know with everything that's going on right now, the custodians are definitely under a lot of stress trying to get things disinfected, which we have never done. We've always just cleaned, never disinfected. We have a product that is called Vindicator, and I was supposed to bring a bottle and I forgot, that we've been spraying. I've recommended all the custodians to spray chairs. Tables are supposed to be wiped down every night. After they clean the restrooms, they are also supposed to go back and spray the restrooms and leave it. Just spray it and leave it so that it dries and dwells overnight, which is good practice. I know that there's a lot of teachers that are concerned that things are not getting done. I have been going out in the morning early to check to see how things are going. With the scare that we just had, with not knowing if the coronavirus was here or not, there was a few rooms in the district that I personally went and sprayed them completely down with Vindicator, and then went back the following day and used bleach water to wipe everything down. I did notice there were some areas that were not being looked at or taken care of, so I have been going out and talking with custodians about certain things where the kids are touching, things like that. I don't know what else to say. I just want you guys to know that I am working with the custodians. We've got guidelines that I'll give to all of you guys that we have been talking about and going through, and we keep sending out memos. Steve's been working with me with memos and stuff to be putting out and stuff like that. So I just wanted to let you guys know that we are trying. So it's just a very big job right now.
Well, we really appreciate it because we know you're the front line there, and that makes a big difference.
Yeah, and it's a lot of students for very few custodians. I mean, when you get 15 minutes per classroom, which is a high average to clean a classroom, and you have special events that are going on and other things that are going on that pull us away. Sometimes we only might have 6 or 7 minutes in that classroom to clean. That's not very much time to hit everything. So with all the special events that are going on, with everything else that's going on in our schools, people forget that we are not being able just to spend that 15 minutes in that classroom. A lot of times we're being pulled away, and you might have to walk to the other side of the school to let a parent in to get a book, or there's a spill or something like that, and those are all things that have to be addressed. Somebody pukes in the bathroom, things like that have to be addressed, and those are things that come up first, and those are priority. So I just want to let everybody know that I've been working with Jeff. We've been talking about getting sanitizer into the school, which is very hard to get right now. Maybe foam in, foam out, things like that. And there's other things that we've been looking at too. So we're trying. So
Thank you.
I just want to let you guys know.
Really
And
appreciate
then
it.
I'll let you guys.
Public comments?
Sarah Mitchell, parent today. Welcome to the new school board members. Nice to see you up there.
Thank you.
I'm just here to say that my daughter is in Crescent Elk, and let me first preface it with I love the Crescent Elk 6th grade staff. I think they're really wonderful. My daughter's teacher is awesome. I feel like they take care of the 6th graders really well, and I appreciate that. However, this week alone, my daughter's come home 2 days. She's been farmed out into another class one day, and she's had kids farmed into her class one day. And this is just 1 week. And this is happening in all the schools across the district where if a sub can't be found, students in that class are just being farmed out. In 6th grade, when she's learning how to add, subtract, divide, and multiply positive and negative integers, and that's a very difficult concept for her for whatever reason, it's very distracting to have additional students in your class. Even just 5 students, sometimes I think people think, oh, just a couple more students is not a big deal. I encourage you to go into some of these classes where kids are being farmed into other classes and see what a big deal it is. See what a distraction it can be. See the extra work it puts on the teacher in the classroom. See the dynamics and the social situations that change when new students come into classrooms. And tell me that my daughter isn't being distracted from what she needs to learn. And then she comes home, and then I'm having to then spend time where we should be spending time as a family, and I'm teaching her positive and negative integers to make sure that she hasn't lost any opportunities to learn and that she stays on track. And I think people are getting to the point where they're tired of saying the same thing over and over, and I just don't want you to think that because you're not hearing it again, it's not happening. Because it is happening. It's happening in Gen Ed, it's happening in our special ed programs where they're saying it's inclusion and they're just including just 5 kids. But if you look at Judy Smith's class, that's an entire table of kindergartners adding to that class. So this is not just an issue with my daughter, it's an issue across the district, and it's not getting better. And I know it's been brought before you guys. I'm not sure what you do about a sub shortage. I know that we'd be willing to sit and brainstorm because we always are. I don't know what you do to reach out to ask to figure out the problem, but we can't just let it continue to be. It's affecting the children in our school system. It's affecting the teachers. And I really hope that we can really look into that, because it's been brought up a gazillion times, and I've yet to hear one thing that addresses what are we going to do as we continue to not be able to have subs for our kids, because just farming them out is not okay. So I hope you guys will look into that for our students' success.
Paige Thompson, DNTA grievance chair. I know that there are a lot of things on everybody's plates right now, and I wanted to maybe remind Mr. Harris and extend the invitation to the board. Last week, DNTA filed a grievance, and one of the components of our suggested remedy is that a board member sit in on a meeting. And I know that school board members don't usually handle that level of management, but I think it would be really great for you to be part of that conversation, see the process, maybe be more familiar with how all of that works. We did not put a specific board member. I don't know if you want to draw straws or whatever, but I wanted you to know that that was a part of the remedy that we suggested, and DNTA would really value having one of you at the table for that specific grievance. Thanks.
I'm Diane Weiss, principal at Best Maxwell School. I just want to publicly thank Mr. Napier for coming over and spelling me for 2 hours while I was the sub in the SDC classroom at Best Maxwell School. So thank you, Mr. Napier.
Mary Michelle Cobb, I'm a teacher at Redwood School. I just want to tag on to the comments that Sarah made. I know that this week, to my knowledge, we haven't had to farm any students out at Redwood, but I know our librarian was pulled from the library to teach. She is a credentialed teacher who works as a classified employee in our library, but she was pulled from the library to sub, and so we had no library today because the librarian was teaching. And our PE teacher has been pulled a couple of times to sub for sick teachers because there were no subs. PE is the only subject that we are mandated at the amount of minutes the students must have. So when you pull the PE teacher to go sub in a language arts class, those students are not getting the mandated PE time from the PE teacher. And it falls on the regular teacher to then make up those minutes that they didn't get with the PE teacher, just putting more minutes.
My name is Miriam Wilson. I teach at Delmont High School. The discussion of the bond issue. Well, on that subject, I wondered for a long time as I've seen various schools in our district, and wondered to myself, how did our schools get so bad? Yeah, they're old, but how did they get so bad, like falling down bad? And it just seems like there's a history in this district of financial misuse. Also, Esther's comment made me think, that the distrust, it's not just, national Sacramento and, federal distrust. It's distrust of our local, the historical misuse of funds in this district. I'm not saying it's all, clearly it's not all this current administration's fault. But, and I think that's where a lot of distrust comes from. There's a lot of waste. This building, I feel, and others also feel, is top heavy. Grants come and people are hired for those grants. Well, then the grant money goes away, but we're still paying for a position. I just think that you should consider being more careful with your spending, prioritizing those that are in the everyday with the students, your teachers, CSEA, classifieds, and stop wasting, reprioritize.
Judy Smith, Church School. When I saw that in closed session there was some discussion about the evaluation of the superintendent, and I know I'm not supposed to ask questions, but I'm very curious as to what document or evaluation tool is being used in that position. I know that as a certificated employee, I am evaluated using the stool bill. Is it something that we would find on a district website to see what evaluation tool is being used for that position, or who can direct me in the direction to find that tool? I would appreciate that. Thank you.
No other comments? We're going to take a 5-minute break. We got board member reports.
No, all of our computers are doing some updates, so thanks, Ryan. I went to the STEAM night at Mary Peacock. Really fun. Oh my goodness, they had different events at each little classroom. Everything from like a Lego center that was at Judy Smith, anyways, in a Smith class, and then they had like rocket leaves things that are being offered around my house right now by my 3-year-old. But it was really cool. They did a great STEAM night. So thanks Mary Peacock for opening up the classrooms and just having a fun STEAM night and letting us just create craziness in your classrooms. One other announcement though I do want to say to let you guys know, Redwood PTSO is having a quarter craze this Saturday at 5 o'clock. I don't know if it's part of your thing, but they're trying to fundraise for a couple different things, one of them being the playground at Redwood. So quarter craze, 5 o'clock at Elk Valley Casino. You can go to their Facebook to find out some more information for Redwood PTSO.
Any other board members? Any other reports? All right, let's move on to the student board member.
Okay, I'm having technical difficulties today, so we're just gonna do this out loud. You'll miss my pretty little graphics. But
I just have to say that I'm always gratified when the universe is technical.
this is the best thing. Okay, so first I want to point out all the the Poetry Out Loud, and then we'll talk about the students in the high school working with the nutrition services. That's awesome. I knew about the Poetry Out Loud, but I had no idea that Media Arts was working with nutrition. That was that blew me away how involved our students are being without any anyone telling them they had to be involved. You know, they went out and did it for them. So that was wow. And then also everyone's talking about the coronavirus. It's a hot topic everywhere, but it's indirectly affecting our students via travel for field trips and sports and everything like that. So hopefully that doesn't make too big of an impact. But I know that safety is the biggest priority. I think all of us know that. So it's just a little sad, but life. And then got some events coming up. I know Powder Tuff is coming up at the high school next week. It involves all the students. It's super fun. It's a tradition the high school's always had, so it's nice to see it still going on and see all the student involvement. Oh, and I was wondering if there was an update on the feminine hygiene products being filled. Is that?
Yes, they came in yesterday or the day before, 38 dispensers, big dispensers. They came into the warehouse and they're going to be starting to be installed on Monday. And we hope to have them all installed, all 38, by the end of spring break.
And then stocking the ones that are already there.
Yes, that's already happened.
I haven't seen it at the high school yet, but.
What's that?
Haven't seen it yet at the high school.
You haven't. They're not stocked at the high school.
No.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
I'm very surprised. I apologize, and we'll make sure they get stocked.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it? Yeah. Okay. Good job, thank you. All right, so consent, you said you wanted to,
I just had a question on
yeah.
what the With Heart project is.
Tom, you want to Ed Services? Has that contract, Kristen Miller?
Oh, okay.
So that project, if it's Kristen, I don't have it in front of me, but if it's Kristen Miller, it's for a speaker to come to our March 23rd professional development to provide expertise in the area of social and emotional presentation. So.
All right, can I get a motion on that? Do you have one?
No, I was just looking at to make sure I didn't have any questions. I answered all my questions.
No, I pulled the field trip one from it. That's why I had the question on if we knew of any, if they're going to be rescheduling anything.
At this point, with most field trips, like Liz was talking about, and I'll mention it a little bit later on, there's almost everything is being canceled statewide. We got notification from CIF today that they weren't canceling, that they were leaving it up to individual locations. And even then, if a team said we don't want to play, it's not a forfeit, it's a no play. So we're just seeing more and more things stop. So there's been no mention of rescheduling, it's just been canceled.
So I did have a question on the minutes. The heading says it's minutes of February 20th, February 24th, and February 27th. But the only thing I saw attached was the minutes of February 27th.
So you're,
Am I missing something?
yeah, I think you're looking at it from the,
All three are there.
yeah, she's looking at it from the background, the back one. Not the public view, but the back
The
view.
agenda online, yeah. Okay.
Sometimes I get. You're there.
Ah, there they go, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we found them.
Learning the technology is
No,
not
that
bad.
was, yeah. Oh,
Okay.
I remember a comment, sorry. I saw a resignation from someone. Miss Linda? Retiring. You're retiring. Not resigning, but retiring. So, Miss Linda, thank you so much for your service to our district and, well, be sad. But thank you so much for all the time you've given to our district and, sorry, for just being a great team leader for us and leading us and keeping us all in check, because I don't know what we would do without you, so thank you so much. Woo.
Alrighty then.
Make a motion to approve the consent.
I have one more on the minutes. Sorry. On the minutes of the 27th, under number 2, announcement of closed session items. It says conference with labor negotiators, public employee discipline, and it says dismal and release. I think it should say dismissal instead of dismal.
That's correct. The dismal.
And I'm gonna ask one more question, Ryan. I know that you had a concern about the music repair.
I do.
Because it does not have a
Yeah, on our the course catalog change request form, the Ag CTE and the Health Careers 2 do have the form completed and that they've got the correct, it's on page 3 I think, the California State Course Code. We've vetted that internally, page 4. The instrument repair does not have that code, and in looking this morning, I wasn't able to determine what code it should be, so I would just not know how to align this to an approved California State Course Code without some further, in looking through this, I have to meet with the teacher or the staff at the high school to determine how we would align this course to an approved course.
So, do we need the course to be able to approve it, or if, is the board okay approving the course, then we can work on the code?
It's up to you, we can work on the code later, I just wanted to bring it up, that
Okay.
this form wasn't fully completed.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that we were following that we were able to get it in the book so that we can plan for next year.
Good. That's it.
Any other questions? Okay, I'm gonna make a motion to approve the consent.
A second?
Second.
Yes. Linda, please poll.
Mrs. Lazy?
Yes.
Mrs. Greeno?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mrs. Faulkner?
Yes.
Mr. Margarino?
Yes. The only thing is we're not gonna accept your resignation.
I'm not resigning.
All right, either way, we're not accepting it. All right, coming up, report, Del Norte Teachers Association, Mr. Jones.
Hello all, I'm Michael Jones, Del Norte Teachers Association. Before I begin, I want to throw out some thank yous. Thank you, Jessica, for being here tonight. Thank you, David Hayes, I guess he's not here to stay. Make a note. Cancel my Redwood Voice, Avi Kritz, and Persephone Rose, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, for being here. Appreciate it. I do have a shout out to our DNTA members. Last month, DNTA was recognized by the Labor Council in Humboldt County, given the honor of Union of the Year. I'd like to thank the Labor Council for that. They will be recognized May 7th in Eureka. I am very proud and honored to represent this group of dedicated teachers on a daily basis. And thank you for Charlene for looking at me right now. Thank you. Eyes, please. I do that with my I know you've heard it over and over again, but every single day we have such a dedicated group of people that stand in front of the children of Delaware County every single day and do their very, very best every single day. And with the challenges that we have, and there are many, they do a phenomenal job. I'm in my 27th, this will be my 28th year, 27 years, whatever, does it matter? But man, the young teachers, the middle people in the middle of it, and the people near the end of it are just do a phenomenal job on a daily basis. And my hat is off to you if I have one on my head, and I probably should have one. You guys are awesome people. Welcome Charlene, Maisie to the school board. Did I do it right?
You got it right, both of them. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to represent the children of Delaware County, and of course, thank you, Frank, and thank you, what's wrong with me? Jamie, and Dawn, and Angela, for all you guys do also. I do appreciate it, even though it seems contentious, and I seem like a very angry person all the time. This is kind of thing. Thank you for that, thank you. Our negotiations are continuing not to be resolved. Teachers are handling a lot of stress, and it makes the job harder. And it's more so than I've ever experienced. My kids are gone, so I don't have that added stress of where my daughters are at what that given time anymore. But the stress of the day-to-day is, for everyone, is too much. It's too much. PBIS in Tacoma, I haven't had anyone come to me talking about what great revelations came out of that conference. But one thing I did hear is that Tier 3 is still not there. And we have extreme defiance. We have violence on a daily basis. We have profanity happening. I was cussed out today twice. If not at all sites, I'm sure it's happening at all sites. It's difficult. I've been cussed out more times this year than 27 years combined. It's prevalent. It's safe, respectful, responsible. It's not working. 378th day and still on a contract. This is hard because this really is not okay. Sickness across the district, and we know it's happening. People are sick. I called in sick on the 28th, the day after the school board meeting. My stomach was growling. I was eating animal crackers. And what do you eat this guy? I don't know. Anyway, 3:30 I woke up to, and I don't want to go into details, but I called up and got a sub. Well, I got an email as I was looking at about 10:30. I thought, well, I'll just check the emails. This union guy's probably going to have something going on today. But it was an email from the HR demanding that I, for the first time, need to come with the doctor's note, or I'm going to get a RIF notice. If you don't know what a RIF notice is, it's a notice that says cease and desist what you're doing. Otherwise, it's going to go in your file. And if you do it again, it could be grounds for firing you. And I'm thinking, wow, I had, and I explained this back in October when I had tonsillitis. And I was going to tough it out. I went to school, and I sat there, and I couldn't even swallow. And I sat there for 2.5 hours in agony with a fever. Couldn't get this up. And they finally farmed out my kids after 2.5 hours, and I got up got up to urgent care and got myself an antibiotic. And I had a note, and I brought it in, and Ruth said, "You don't need that note for one day." Okay. Anyway, there was a list of names that were supposed to be provided to me. I didn't get that list until later. But I'm thinking, what? with the coronavirus and all the sickness going around, because we had one day that was really impactful, all of a sudden, bam, we're gonna ask for that note? I think it's disrespectful, again. Independent study package, there's a big question about that across the district. Every school is calling me going, am I supposed to do it? Do I have to do it? Is it required of me? Are the principals doing it? Please, show some leadership and let us know what we're supposed to do with that. Please, thank you. Guys, I know it's not a good time to be visiting because there's a lot of sickness going on, but we still would like to see you guys come visit. Teachers are feeling, you know what they're feeling. These educators give their best every day, and they would like to see your faces. Please don't get me wrong. We love our jobs. I love my job. Every single day when I get to stand in front of those kids, even the ones that are little sneakers sometimes, 7th and 8th grade, it's empowering to me to see those kids. They come. And I have a golden opportunity to get to teach music, something that is a passion of mine, along with other things. But I get that opportunity to do that, and I thank you, and I thank you, and I thank you for that. The challenges are many. We need you, school board, to demand that the district management ends this fight. I would like nothing more than have those beautiful schools and have this happen, but I cannot go to a house and say, vote for this, when people are going, well, what's going on? You know, are you working together with these people or not? What's going on? We can't do it. We have to mend that fence, and that needs to happen, and it should have happened. It should have happened months and months and months and months and months and months and months. I could go back, like 12th, 13th month. Yeah. I had the opportunity to attend the President's Forum in Burlingame. I've been in before, but I sat down with the president of CTA as well as the executive board and talked about concerns of small communities like ours. And one thing we could do that would solve so many problems is for us to get behind the Schools and Community First initiative. It is going to make the ballot. They're very, very confident that it is going to make the ballot in November. Please, we need to. And in fact, let me give a kudo to Delaware County. We had more signatures for that than Humboldt County. That's how much Delaware County appreciates education in here. Think of the different vast number between Humboldt County and Delaware County. We have more signatures. And so, we need to take it to the next level. Now, there's a lot of misinformation going on about that, and I brought down those questions because we are, I'd like to say purple, but we lean towards red. And there's a lot of misinformation about there. And one of them was, well, man, if I own a bunch of rentals, and it's more than $3 million, am I going to be taxed at this new rate? The answer is no, and agriculture is not going to be taxed either. Delaware County is going to benefit immensely because we don't have the Disneylands and the Chevrons that are still paying the same taxes that they were paying back in 1978. Disneyland pays $5 per square foot. $5. And they're charging $200 a ticket, so do the math. I don't want to. Okay. Give me a second. This is all right. Okay. Before I go, I would like to ask everyone in the room to take for a moment of silence in honor of Sherry and Brian Potter, who taught in this district for over 30 years apiece, two retired teachers who lost their lives last month.
All right, the California School Employees Association, George.
Charlene.
Charlene,
Yes. Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, negotiations are going pretty well. We come to a kind of agreement regarding catastrophic leave, something will change. But we'll see how it goes, because tomorrow we'll be discussing money. I hope things will continue to go well. The negotiating team has brought forward real solutions and problem solving to come to a fair agreement. We're hoping the district will work with us to create some long-term solutions. Our major hurdle right now is communication and confidentiality among district administration and management. We're currently working with Colin Parker and Summer Pike to address these issues. We ask for the board's support as we continue to work with the district to solve these problems. Thank you.
Superintendent's report, Mr. Harris.
So, a lot of what's been brought up tonight, I think we've heard the word COVID, or we've talked about the situation quite a bit. So we've been spending quite a bit of time on addressing the situation, looking at what's going on, talking to public health. The state just Saturday night around Saturday issued some new guidance around what they're calling scenarios. So what does it look like in scenario 1, where there are no community cases, which is where we are now? It's the typical preventative measures that need to be taken. And then what does it look like if you're in scenario 2, where there is a couple of community cases? Scenario 3, where we have a student at a school, and scenario 4, where we have multiple students at multiple schools. And so it's a fun place to play. Wide open space. So as we go through, tomorrow morning, well, so that came out on Saturday. And then all of county superintendents were invited to go visit with the, and here again, when they're talking about social distancing and staying away, and it was important that we were there. But we had a meeting with the governor, the state superintendent of schools, the director of the California Department of Public Health, the associate director. There were 40 county superintendents, along with the State Board of Education, the mayor of Sacramento, and some other folks, talking about what is California's response to COVID-19 and what should it be. And there has been lots of conversation, and I really appreciate the emails that I've gotten from folks. I've been putting out information as I have it. Unfortunately, things are moving now much more quickly than we can get information out. So Saturday night at 8 o'clock, I got the call to go to Sacramento, went to Sacramento, had the meeting. That was right about the time that the first student at the Elk Grove School was identified as testing positive for COVID-19. That was the same time, just 2 hours previously, the governor had given the okay for the cruise ship to dock at Port of Oakland, and the community was still reeling from the decision of Elk Grove to close 67 schools for 63,000 kids. And the message at that point from everyone around the table was very clear. We are not closing schools. We are not closing districts. The state is not going to issue any sort of dictate about closing large services for students, right? So we had those kind of things that were said. And what we found out was, again, the timing was odd. We very seldom ever get anything from the governor's office or the California Department of Education on a Saturday, much less late on a Saturday night. But with the Elk Grove closure, and that was a child that was in a home with somebody who had been identified as having COVID-19. At that particular point, that child was put in isolation by the public health department. They notified the school district did the full closure and gave parents 2 days notice and moved spring break up a week. So all the spring break plans that families had were shot. Plus there was no way for many of those parents to plan for child care and plan for some other things. Food services, all those kind of things. So during our conversation, it was made really, really clear there was no plan on doing any of that. And we thought it was somewhat ironic that we were talking about social distancing and staying apart, and they pulled everybody into the same room, right? So I came home, we started working through some of the planning process, taking a look at what we were doing, talking to, again, public health, because the message from Sacramento has been loud and clear. Work with your public health, they're calling the shots in most of these situations. So as we were going through, and again, we're told, don't worry, we're not going to be doing any of these things. Late last night, the call came through, hey, just so that you know, the state is now issuing guidance on gatherings. So the state right now is recommending that no group larger than 250 gather. So we've already talked to principals about that, because Redwood, for instance, holds a great Friday assembly, but you have 500 students all in the gym. So they'll be postponing that to really think through with their staff what those recognitions look like. Also, they're recommending that recesses, to the fullest extent possible, be split, so that you have fewer children interacting with one another in a less controlled environment. There are also recommendations. We have teachers who do some amazing things with flexible seating. They're recommending putting kids in rows, and putting your rows and seats as far apart as you can as well. And then they're also recommending that for at-risk populations, that you, under no circumstances do you have meetings of 10 or more people who are significantly at risk. And remember, at risk are the elderly, those with underlying health conditions. So, you know, we're trying to wrap our head around all that as that's coming in, because of the implications that it has on everything we do this time of year, from LCAP input sessions to staff meetings to professional development, everything else. And then on top of that, now the closures of venues are starting to ripple through. So whether that impacts what we're doing with comprehensive support and improvement with our schools, or whether that is the American Indian Conference in Sacramento for our kids, whether that is CIF, we heard, I think I mentioned a little earlier, CIF is now, they're not stopping games, they're leaving it up to local venues to determine what they want to do. But they're putting some recommended protocols into place, and the message CIF sent out was very short and brief. But I think as the months progress, we're going to see more and more cases. We'll see more and more restrictions, because I've heard informally that what state health department officials and national health department officials are looking at is the fact that some of the significant restrictions that they put in place in China and Singapore seems to have worked to slow the spread. And so there is discussion, or at least there has been the recommendation, that the people at the state and national level start talking about more stringent restrictions. But we don't know what that looks like, because this is the United States, it's not China or Singapore. So we don't know how this is really going to play out in the days to come. One thing that we need everybody to be prepared for is the number of tests that are available in California have been pretty minimal. Now that number of tests is going to skyrocket. The number of tests will skyrocket, which means that the number of people that test positive will go up, just because we don't know how many there are right now. But only the folks that have been the most at risk or exhibiting the worst symptoms have been tested. So we're expecting to see that, and along with the higher number of people that are going to be identified as being infected with COVID-19, you're also going to have higher anxiety in the population, because people just don't know what that looks like. And as we work with our kids, you know, in most cases, I don't believe the last statistic I saw, there hadn't been a death in anyone under the age of 17. So, you know, just kind of thinking about our student group. Those kids also go home to their grandparents, they go home to medically fragile siblings and parents, and so we want to be really careful as we move forward. So along with what Jen talked about earlier on the disinfecting, we also have been working, I met with bus drivers the other day, talking about how can they disinfect buses, because again, we can't social distance on a bus when you've got two kids at a seat, they're shoulder to shoulder. What does that look like? And a lot of the bus kids that we have who ride with us, they are low-income students, they're homeless students, they're students who may not be able to afford from the family perspective to stay home. There's very little childcare. The family, can't do that. So our bus drivers are disinfecting after each route, and they're disinfecting prior to weekends so that the bus can sit over the weekend with a higher level of disinfection as well. And then we also talked about, should we start having symptoms amongst our kids, or should we start having identified cases? Having the nurses potentially do a training with our bus drivers to be able to identify students who may have fevers, or who are exhibiting those kind of, like Frank, who are exhibiting cough and different symptoms. And then identifying places on the bus where those kids could be, well, not quarantined, but socially distanced, until we can reach out to a family member or actually have a school nurse work with them to determine whether or not they need to go home for that amount of time. So, Angela?
So what are we doing then on the SARB process? Because that, I know last year, the A2A, that was a big question, especially for students. We had that big nasty bug, and it was like, well, I'm getting a thing that say I'm going to go to SARB board when like my kid legitimately was in the bathroom for the last 3 days. How is that, I think this is the question for the whole state, how is that going to affect attendance overall?
Well,
because...
So what's going on right now, and these are questions that we kind of had for the governor. So by executive order, the governor can do things like he can suspend the chronic absentee part of the dashboard, right? So instead of making kids come to school so that the district or the site doesn't get dinged, we can really take into consideration the fact that this is all going on. The second piece is really the ADA component, because we're encouraging students. If students and staff are feeling or exhibiting the symptoms that go along with this, any flu-like symptoms, if there's a fever, those kind of things, we don't want folks at school, right? And we've heard the struggles that we already have. We have trouble getting subs. So we know that things are going to happen. So as we talk with kids about not coming, then we still run into certain issues where there's no child care. So what do I do with my child, right? We don't want a kindergarten student staying at home, or necessarily if they have a fever or dry cough and have chest congestion, going to grandma's. So those are situations and conversations that we have to be having with the Office of Emergency Services that I've been having with Dr. Ray Walt, who's the public health officer. But I don't think we're going to move forward on SARB unless we have families that don't have excuses, right? And sometimes what we'll see is we will see a family who says, my child is homesick, and then they post pictures on Facebook of them on the teacups at Disneyland.
Well, that's closed now.
And Disneyland's
Disney World, maybe.
But those are the kind of things that we'll need to take into consideration. And as always with A2A, cite principals and teachers. A principal, even if that comes across through A2A as a chronic absentee notice, the principal can suppress that notification and notify the SARB coordinator that this child is not going to be referred to SARB for this reason. So, and we'll see what happens, because some students, kind of going back to the independent study piece, and I'm glad Marshall mentioned that. I sent Jen Longry, I sent a clarification to Jen earlier today, and I hope that cleared some things up. But we need to get more clarity out to elementary staffs, to middle school staffs, because if they're having those questions, then the process didn't work on getting the information out. But we know that most kids, if they're going to be isolated to look for an incubation because they're around someone, that's about 14 days. They said actually most people start showing in 2 to 5. 14 though, 10 has been kind of the longest. 14 is a safe distance, right? And they always recommend the outlier. So 10 days of independent study with 2 weekends in there is 14 days. So we were starting at that 10-day window because if a parent was concerned, there's 14 days to then say, okay, we're good to go, right? Or to ask for more if in fact it develops into something. So there are a lot of moving parts, and tomorrow morning a lot of us are going to meet to start, like I said, working through the different scenarios and to say what does this look like, and then start engaging each department as necessary. But I do have to say, I have to give some shout outs. Again, the custodial staff have gone above and beyond. Bus drivers were so engaged, it was amazing. I know our teachers are doing a lot to make sure that our kids are washing their hands. And our staff too, we were looking at, our nurses are going in, I don't know if nurses have contacted school sites yet. They were gonna go in and do trainings on the appropriate ways to do the vampire cough and sneeze, how to wash hands, not to touch face, and then the social distancing piece. But, and Jeff, who was it that found the hand sanitizer? Tammy. So, Tammy Zatola? So Tammy Zatola, who's not even in the maintenance and operations department, you know, who would normally get supplies. We were looking for hand sanitizer. Hand sanitizer right now, if we could find a couple of cases, we could take it to Los Angeles or Sacramento and eliminate our budget deficit, right? Tammy found 5,000 bottles that are on their way here. Oh, they got here today? So we'll be deploying those out to classrooms, to offices, to places where kids and families congregate. We're not telling them how we got them. But those are coming, and that's how the staff are all kind of pitching in to do as much as they can. So it's...
She did find some on Amazon, but they were like $200 a case.
There goes my student loan debt.
So that's really, that's been eating up a lot of time over the last few years.
All right. Just move into action, second interim financial report, Michelle Brent.
Okay, so Michelle and I are actually going to be tag teaming on this. And this is kind of a, it's a play in 2 acts. So there are two different action items that are kind of put together. So the first one will be the financial report. So you have your PowerPoint, which we'll be going off of. But the problem with PowerPoint is when you try to put things like this into PowerPoint, you can't read them. So you also have a packet in the proper order. So on the PowerPoint, when we get to the slides that say SACS forms, then we will start on the packet and Michelle will go over those. And we'll proceed that way. So please bear with me as I'm going to have to switch back and forth between PowerPoint and, oh, not this again.
Mr. Harris, while they're sitting there, did the governor say anything?
Back it up a little bit, have some ability to file waivers, right? Because that happened, the federal government would not grant them a waiver, would not let them off the hook, and mark them all as low performing.
But that was local, and this
Pardon?
virus is national, so
That's-
it's not just one state or Paradise getting hit. This
That's
is
right.
hitting the whole nation.
But-
Yeah,
but-
I see the problem,
But that's the problem. So as the state gave waivers and the state said you're fine, the feds said you're not. However, what I would say right now is under ESSA, under the Every Student Succeeds Act, it's not the hammer that NCLB was. And so even if the feds say, no, we're not gonna grant you a waiver, we know we're not gonna forgive that, even though we know that it's a national, at this point, the World Health Organization has called it a pandemic because it's on it's in multiple countries, multiple continents. The feds may not forgive, but California is not going to hold us responsible for many of these things. And right now, they're just working out the language and what that looks like as we move forward.
Thank you, and I'm sorry I interrupted.
Okay, so this is our second interim budget report and budget revision. Let's see if I can get this to work. So the second interim, this is a second snapshot of our budget that we look at during the year. The time period from the second interim is from July 1st, which is the beginning of the fiscal year, to January 31st, 2020. Second interim reporting is required by law, and it includes a budget revision to true up the budget since the first interim, which Michelle kind of went through on the county side. We're looking at what are our actuals to date, and then adjusting our budget to make sure everything's working right. So why is it important? Budgets are ever changing, like Michelle said. Even what she printed out today, it's already changed because people are spending money, people are getting paid, we have new things coming in, revenues coming in. Budget's only perfect the day that it's adopted, which you'll hear me when we get to our budget, because once it's adopted, it's going to change. In the second interim, new expenditures and revenues must be accounted for, and it includes the 3-year multi-projection to ensure fiscal stability with our ongoing expenditures. So just kind of a recap of our budget revision process. We adopt our budget in June, and then we revise it in August within 45 days of the governor signing the budget. So kind of going back in history there, we have our approved budget. That was our June budget with a revenue of 44 million and the expenditures of 44.8. So we had projecting about a $450,000 deficit at that time. Then we did the August budget revision. We ended up getting some additional revenues coming in. There were a few additional expenditures, but our deficit kind of went down a little bit there. Then in December, we had our first interim report. We presented that to the board, and that's basically the report from July 1st to October 31st. It's basically the same thing. It includes projection for the current year and multi-year. You do a budget revision in that. So our budget revision for the first interim is up there on the board. And those of you who are here probably remember that. We had expenditure changes that we're going through, because basically you look and see where are we spending for now on the new expenditures coming in. We put the expenditure changes there. Then our estimated fund deficit to fund balance at that point was $965,000, and that at the first interim we also bring in the carryovers, if you recall. So carryovers from prior year, they come in, they're not counted as revenues because they were already counted as revenues in the prior year. So you're pulling them up from fund balance and dropping them into expenditures. So at first interim, your deficit always looks bigger, or your expenditures always look greater to your revenues, because you have current year revenues with expenditures that some of that money for the expenditures came prior year. So in the second interim, again, this is the report that we give. It goes through January 31st. It includes the same content as the first interim, updated with the new revenues and expenditures, and the budget revision is presented. So now on your page it says SACS forms. We're going to go to the packet that's with that has revenues and has the multi-year projections from SACS, and Michelle will explain those, and I need to pull those up.
I was really excited. He said he was going to present the second interim.
But your name was on the agenda.
So I'm going to let him talk about the sad stuff. What I want to do is introduce you to an old friend of mine. This is the SACS form. This is your budget. This is not my budget. This is your budget. And I want you to understand it. When you're talking about distrust, that makes me sad. I'm not used to that where I come from. My districts, well, they love me. So I'm not used to that. So I want you to understand that. This is your budget. So we're going to go through this because understand everything that's on here. And if you have any questions, you know where my office is. I love going through this with people. I like people. I like numbers a little bit more, but I'll talk. Okay, so I set this up the way that I want you to look at it. I worked at the County Office of Ed, so one of the largest tasks of what I did was review budgets. So this is how you do it. I'm going to show you how you do it. I set this budget up the way that I want you to look at it. So this first page comes after the first 3 pages that I have to put first, because that's for the board. I asked them to sign that page. It would be really rude of me to ask them to sign a page that I buried in the back. So the board's pages are on the front. After that, this is the multi-year projection. I'm a number person. I don't like words. We're going to shorten it. This is the MYP. And you look right here. This is the unrestricted and the restricted. That's the first one we look at. It's going to give us the first temperature of what this district looks like. It's going to give us this year. It's going to give us next year. And it's going to give us the year after that. The state requires that we do that because in the past, a school district made a decision that they could afford in this year, but when they got into the out years, they went belly up. So the state said, we can't do that. We're going to be budgeting for 3 years. This is how we're going to do it. So we got our revenues at the top. I'm going to go fast because I respect your time and I don't want you to fall asleep before I'm done. Okay, so revenues and other financing sources. We have the LCFF at the top. We got federal, state, local, other sources. So what we want to do is kind of look across. We want to make sure that look like we're trending in the right direction. That looks pretty good. Okay, we're going down to our expenditures. Certificated salaries. We got B right here. So we're going to start with our base salary, then we got step and column. So this is where we're at this year.
Can we make it a little bit bigger for old eyes?
I know, it's hard for me, I'm right here. So this is going to move over in here into this next year. This line right here is 1.5%. That's what I used. That's what school services, that's what FCMAT suggests I use, and whatever FCMAT says, I do. So this number right here is gonna be 1.5% increase. That's your step and column. So I want you to ask me, what the heck is that? Look at that. I'm beginning to think your budget person doesn't know what they're doing. That's an adjustment, okay? I want you to ask me about that. When you see stuff like that in our budget, come to my office and ask me. Classified salaries. Again, we got base salaries, we got step and column. Again, I budget with 1.5% step and column. So we start here, current year salaries, 1.5%. We're adding that. Holy moly, look at what I'm doing. We got adjustments. We got a negative little one out there, we got a big one out there. I'm going to show you where to look for that. I know that you guys are going to look at your budget. I know that you're interested in this budget. I know you're going to ask me what that is, so I embedded the answer for you. I'm going to show you where to look for it. We got the employee benefits. They follow the salaries. There's that STRS on behalf. Remember we talked about the STRS pension. Okay, that's in there too. Yeah, that's okay. Okay, books and supplies. Okay, your books and supplies are going to be bigger in this first year because we got one-time expenditures, right? We also have maybe some grants or some money that we're planning on using all of it up in the first year. It's not going to come in again. It's not an ongoing revenue. So we only going to have those expenditures in this first year. So when we look at this, we're like, okay, we expect that to drop off. So when you look at this, I want you to see that. I want you to see a drop off there. But holy moly, we're going up again a little bit. Why are we doing that? Because you can't buy a meal today what you could for 5 years ago, right? So we have to build in an increase over the years. I use the CPI percentage that's on the school service dartboard. So that's built into the books and supplies, the services and other operating expenditures. Look at how many syllables are there. We don't use that. Books and supplies I call the 4s, services and other operating, I say 5s. So when you're talking to me, we got to speak numbers. So these are the 4s, these are the 5s. So the 5s, you're going to see the same thing. Okay, we got our one-time expenditures. We got our one-time grants in there. They're going to fall off just a little bit. Coming down a little bit. But we're building up. So we got to have a little increase for that out here. See how they're falling there? Okay, so we got, what else we got on here? Oh, indirect. So your restricted funds pay for some overhead. And so that's what this is. The indirect cost is given to us by the state. The SACS knows what it is. I don't even have to tell it what it is. It knows. And if I put the wrong indirect into the budget, SACS gives me a fatal error. It says, whoa, don't be greedy. So we only get what we are supposed to get here. Okay, transfers out. We have, okay, so transfers out. These are the objects that we're using, 7600 to 7629. And then they break it, 7630, 7699. And then they say transfers out, and then they say other uses. Nah, they're just both transfers out. They're just using different objects here. So we use 7619, 7616, and we're going to use 7699. Those are the 3 object codes that we're using to transfer these funds out. The general fund supports other funds. So we got early childhood,
deferred maintenance.
Yep, deferred maintenance. So the list of transfers is on the back of that packet. There's more packets in the back on the table if you want to look at. Okay, so we're zipping through here. Okay. So this C line, it's going to give you the first idea of how well we're doing. But it's, yeah. Okay, so we're looking at the whole picture. Remember, we got restricted and unrestricted. So this is your beginning fund balance, and this is your ending fund balance. You've got non-spendable in there. I'm going to show you what that is. I'm going to show you exactly how to look for it, so you know exactly what every penny of that is. There's a page for that. Okay. This is a sign. So what we've got down here is our reserve for economic uncertainty. We know what that is, right? 3%. Our expenditures. Here it is. Okay. If we don't make this out here, this is the golden box that you're looking at right here. If we can't make that, then FICMAT and CDE are going to be calling us. If they don't like the answer we give them, and the FICMAT police are gonna be at our front door. They do that, they visit. This is their indicator. They make us budget for 3 years because they wanna make sure that we make it in that third year. We're making it. Total components of the Indian fund balance. If you add, again, that's what this is. Okay, but you have to take out that 3%. So this is the amount that we have that's extra, right? Okay, all right. Oh, we just go over this?
Yes.
All right, here we go. Keep going. Yeah.
Go.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the unrestricted. So this is, think of the unrestricted as good old grandpa. Okay? Grandpa's got a lot of grandkids. Good old grandpa.
6.
6. He's got 6 grandkids. Yeah. So grandpa's he's saving up money. He's doing all right, and he's got all these other grandchildren that are pulling money from him. Okay. So this is where if we run out of money, this is where we come. This is the unrestricted. Everybody pulls from him if they can't cover themselves. What we need to do is live within our revenues, and I'm going to show you where that's at. So here's our unrestricted. So we have LCFF. That's where the LCF lives because LCFF is unrestricted. We got some federal revenues, other state, other local, just like it was on the other page. Okay? We get down here. This is what you want to look at right here. Contributions. So this is what I'm talking about. Okay? These are the restricted. These are all those grandchildren that can't take care of themselves. Here they are. Right there. Okay, what direction is that going? Right? It's getting worse. Okay. Again, we got our certificated salaries. I'm going to start there. We're going to increase 1.5% for step and column. And then I got some adjustments in there. I got a negative 90,000, negative 12. What the heck am I doing? Classified. 1.5%. There's your step and column. Increase. Decrease. Okay, we're looking at our 4s. Starting here. Falling off a little bit. That's good. Going up a little bit. All right. Working. 5s. Coming down. Going up. All right. I'm liking it. Okay. Keep going. Okay. This is just reviewing again. These are correcting on uncertainty. We had that. All right, right here. This is the second page of the unrestricted. Right there. 2021 certificated salary adjustment is the result of projected reduction in salary costs due to attrition. We're gonna. So far, we know they're going to have 3 new retirees. We're going to replace them at cell C60, maybe. A reduction in the grant evaluation grant. Transfer of, wow, there's a stone. Restricted resource 4126 salary to general fund. Again, that's a grant we don't think it's going to get revenue next year, so it comes back into the grandpa grant, right? 2021 certificated adjustment is due to holding locally restricted substitutes and overtime costs flat. So I didn't apply that 1.5% to the sub cost and the overtime cost. I held them flat. This is we spent $500 for the subs this year, $500 next year. 2021 classified salaries. Adjustments due to adding position number 533, the our mechanic, number 720, number 537, and so on. And the transfer of restricted resource 4127 salary to general fund. So when I'm budgeting, I put all of our information into Escape. Okay, that's our local software. And we have a lot of vacancies. And I've worked with Colleen, she was very helpful. But what I'm trying to do is budget with these vacancies, and it's really tough. So in November, we have all these vacancies. Escape knows we have these vacancies. They know that we haven't paid them from July through September. So when I did the first interim, it thinks that it knows that we're trying to hire these people. So it's gonna think that we have this payroll cost, and it's gonna budget that payroll cost from November through June. But I get here to the second interim, still haven't hired these people. So Escape knows that. So what it's going to do is it knows that we haven't paid those people through January 31st, Now it's up to me and Colleen to decide, are we really gonna be able to fill these positions? So that's what I do with the multi-year projections, is I'm making sure that I'm building all these vacancies back in to year 2. Because it would be silly for me to budget certificated and classified staff here with all these vacancies that have been taken out of the budget because we haven't filled them. SACS doesn't know that. And if I don't add them back in year 2, well then my budget is way off, right? Okay. Am I making sense? All right. All right, let's keep going. So this is restricted. Okay, here's all your grandchildren. This is them. So these are the revenues, mostly, well, yeah, there's some state. So it's your federal state. You're not going to ever see LCFF here because LCFF is unrestricted. Okay? And again, doing the same thing with our salaries. You know how it goes. 1%, 1.5%, step and column. Those are the adjustments. We're going to zip to here because I don't want to waste your guys' time, but it looks just like the others. But it is important to look at this because these are the resources that are, you know, drawing off of that unrestricted fund. What I really like and what I hold in the multi-year projection, what I try to do, is hold a lot of those resources have to live within those revenues. So if you make $10,000, then that's how much your expenditure should be $10,000, right? We're going to net to 0. Okay. So again, this is the explanation for all those adjustments that you see. See, look at all of our positions that I have to go back in. There they are. Is that it?
It came in 3 different,
okay, that's the board one. Oh, okay, so this is, okay, so when you're looking at a SACS form, it's going to say Form 01, Form 02, Form 01. What it really is referring to is the fund. So Fund 01, okay, that's the district. Fund 02, that's county. Fund 09, Castle Rock. So Fund 01, this is the district. Okay. Okay? So this is just this year. We were just looking at the multi-year projections. This is this year. And this is going to show you what we've done throughout the year. So we've got original budget. Okay? This is first interim. Actuals. This is the second interim. Okay, this is what you need to look at. This is where you need to come to my office here. What the heck? There's a difference. Not only does it give you the difference, it gives you the percentage difference. What is that? What am I doing there? Okay? It's going to do the same thing with the expenditures. So you can watch how the expenditures for these certificated salaries, okay, go up a little bit. Look, I'm dropping off. Okay, we know I'm dropping off, right? We talked about that. We got some vacancies going. Salaries, classified salaries. Okay? Went up a little bit first interim. Thought we were going to hire more people. Came down a little bit. Okay. All right. Any questions on this? Okay. So this is page 2 of that. Net increase, decrease in income. Okay? Original budget. What are they getting at? Not so bad. First interim. It's getting a little worse. Beginning fund balance. Okay? Okay, so this is what Mr. Napier was talking about. This is the restricted balance that rolled in from 1819. It rolled in here, but it rolled up into the expenditures, so we're projecting that we're spending them. Okay, so you're not going to see that as we go out. So this right here, this is the reserve. We've had this for quite a few years. It just rolls out there. Keeps going. Okay, reserve for textbooks. What we're doing is we have a reserve for textbook in resource 0234. Okay, but what we're also doing when we're pulling it out here, this is different. What we're doing is saying, you know what, this is important to our district. We want to pull this out of the ending fund balance. We don't want to spend it on anything else because we're going to hold it out there and we're going to use it next year. And that's what we're using it for. We're calling it out that we want to spend it on textbooks next year. Okay, again, we have that reserve for economic uncertainty. Okay? Goes up as our expenditures go up. Unassigned, unappropriated, right there's the bottom. Don't think we need to look at this again. Okay. Good Lord. Down a little. I'm trying to get the top of the next page. Okay. So the difference that you saw in those revenues, if you come here, okay, you're going to see these, and if you can, this is where are we at here? I'm trying to find one that I can read. Transfers. Okay. So it'll tell you what it is. And it's going to tell you what that difference is. So if you saw a difference on that other page, you could come here and you could specifically see what it is. So let's go up just a smidge. Just a smidge. Somebody else get that. Okay. So, yeah, there we go. Okay. So you can see, and it's going to tell you what these differences are. Exactly what the object code is when we code it, and what it is in the description. And you can see how it's gone from through the different budgets and what the difference is. Can you see that new one right there? What that is a prior year adjustment in the state. That's a big one. This is normal. If you look at every year in Fund 02, Fund 01, and Fund 09, you're going to find something that's been posted to that object. What it is a state truing up what they think that they should have paid you to what they really did pay you. And so what they're telling us is, they posted this just a couple weeks ago, they overpaid us a little bit last year. So what they're going to do is take that out of our apportionment here at the last part of the year. So I don't have to post that. Nobody would. I never have to put that in the budget. I don't have to show you that. But what if that was positive? Okay, then you think I was hiding money. I'm not hiding money. I'm not hiding anything. This is an end of year adjustment. It's not something everybody puts in the budget, but I do. Okay. And then, yeah, the one more page I want to show you. Okay. So there was that restricted. On all those other forms, there was that restricted balance there at the bottom in the ending fund balances. If you ever want to know what it is, it's not very much. But this is behind the 401. It's the last page, and it's going to show you exactly what makes up that number. California Clean Energy Job. What that is Prop 39. We've been holding that for quite a while now. It's got to go back. We don't know when. Next one is the lottery instructional materials. That's a little bump up. I could have budgeted that to the forest. I don't think we're going to spend it, so I just let it go out the bottom. So that's what that is. This is special ed, and I don't know the whole story behind it, but I think there was some kind of lawsuit. We're carrying that. We have to carry that balance. It can't be used for anything other than that. There's no expenditures put to it, so it's falling out to the ending fund balance. So that's what all of these are doing. They're falling out to the ending fund balance. There's no expenditures to those funds, and that's what they are. And everything in SACS will tell you what everything is if you just know where to look. If you ever have any questions, I'm asking. All right. So before we do, I think I'm supposed to hand it off to Jeff here, but I want to apologize to all of you. If you go outside this district and you talk to anybody in a district, they're going to tell you beyond a doubt, do not ever hire someone from the county office of ed. I'm not kidding, that's how it works. Because we are obsessed with transparency and compliance, and we're kind of kings in the things about it. So I apologize. What's coming next is going to be a little confusing, and it's pretty extensive. This is what I'm used to dealing with, the revision thing. So yeah,
Sorry. It's gonna be good.
Before we go on, I have a couple questions about this. Can I ask them now? Okay. So, I will be visiting you because I have lots and lots of questions, but my major ones now are, so I understand on line C we have a net increase or decrease. We're projecting decreases, which means our current expenditures are exceeding our current revenues.
Yeah, look at your,
Yeah.
first page.
It's,
Okay.
yeah, it's that. So then you look at the fund balances, and I'm assuming that you make that up with some of the, that's coming out of where does the ending fund balance, what fund balance is it, where is that living coming from?
It's just sitting in the treasury.
Okay, so we're taking the net beginning balance, what we had at the beginning of the year. We're saying we're projecting a loss of 982,000. So then, therefore, we're projecting that fund balance is going to be
Less.
less.
Yep.
Okay,
And then out of that, we have to take out these other things.
okay. So there is, on the unassigned, unappropriated, you have the reserve for economic uncertainties, which I understand, that's kind of your rainy day fund. The state says you have to have a certain percentage.
Right.
What happens with the unassigned, unappropriated money? What does that get used for?
It's unassigned.
So it just stays there, and that's part of that ending fund balance?
Yep,
So
exactly.
it can be used to offset losses from next year?
Yeah. Yep, it's just gonna roll right off the bottom, just like it is right now.
Okay.
Yep.
Nope.
Yep.
Cool, I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Oh, we're not done yet. No, if you wanna do- That is
That was
the
just
first
one
interim
part.
report is done. If you'd like to go ahead and approve that now, then we can move on into the budget.
And I would recommend you do that, just for the sake of clarity and process. So take action on that and move into the budget revision.
I move to accept the second interim report. Approved, sorry.
I'll second that.
Anybody in the public have any questions?
I have another question. I just wanted to know what the instructional materials and supplies was. I know it was only like 3,400 and change, but we're giving that back. And to a classroom teacher, that sounds like another, I don't know, I currently have no notebook paper in my room and just paid for curriculum out of my pocket this morning, so I don't know what that covers, so.
We're not giving that back. We're giving the Prop 39, we're giving back. That's just lottery instructional materials that will be budgeted.
Oh, the ending balance you mean?
Yeah, because you said that you didn't think we'd be spending that.
This late in the year, you know, it's there in the budget, so, I didn't think that, no, I didn't think anybody would.
And Heather, if I can throw something out there too, sometimes what happens, especially with Lottery 6300, it's kind of a funky one.
Right, I know it's got really weird restrictions on what it can be
Like
spent on.
you can buy a printer but not ink, you can do different things like that, right?
I don't have a printer either.
But we could use this to buy you.
That would be amazing. It's
what-
been in process since October, so.
So really what we use this money for sometimes is schools will overexpend, or there won't be enough that's there, and so at the end of the year, we have to true up too. The district had a long history of going back and taking money from schools the following year. And I'm of the firm opinion that we don't punish this year's students for issues that we had with last year's budget, right? So we true that up, and so that's part of what happens at the end of each year too, with some of these carryover dollars, these rollover dollars. And the list for 6,300 is so small. If this was 1,100, which is the general lottery, which is unrestricted,
So
I think
that's
that
not
would go
going
up.
back to the state,
No.
the lottery?
No,
Oh,
no, no.
That's what, that was my misunderstanding. I know it's only $3,000, but that sounds like a huge amount to a classroom teacher if we're just gonna hand it back.
Well, trust
I
me.
could spend it tomorrow.
We're going after state pots of money that are 10,000, 16,000.
Yeah, yeah.
So was there one of those though that she said was going back?
Prop 39.
Which one is that?
It's the largest one.
The 110,000.
Clean energy.
Clean energy.
Why are we not able to take it?
Because the clean energy plan, that was, the majority of our Prop 39 money went to the high school. There was some clean energy plan money that was for the district office. But the amount of money that we got versus what the plan actually said that we were going to accomplish was only about half of it. And you can't piecemeal a Prop 39 plan that's been approved by the state, so we either had to do all of it, which would have been general fund, we would have had to come up with additional monies to do that, or not do it all. We've tried to get some waivers. We're trying to still, because they keep extending when you have to send it back, so we're still trying to see if we could possibly use that, if they'll let us redo our plan, which they keep saying no, but we're on our third person working in that office in the past 4 years. So we have to keep reintroducing ourselves and going through everything with them. So it's kind of on hold, but we can't spend it for anything except for what's on the approved plan, and then you have to complete the entire approved plan. And the approved plan was a lot more than what they gave us.
And just so you know too, that this plan has been sitting there for
6 years? 6 years.
So it's been there for a long time. And you can't shift it. They haven't asked for it back. They haven't told us we can spend it. And we can't, the project has to meet what's called the savings to investment ratio. And if we don't meet the SIR, then we can't spend it. And the only way to meet the SIR, like Jeff said, is to complete the plan. And we're not gonna pull money out of the general fund to do that. So.
Thank you.
Okay, so, any other questions? Otherwise, can I get a motion?
You already got a motion.
Second.
Yes.
Referential vote?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mrs. Greeno?
Yes.
Mr. MacArthur?
Yes.
Mrs. Faulkner?
Yes.
Mr. Margarita?
Yes. Still call me migraine.
Okay, so moving on, and she actually explained the majority of the stuff in the revised budget already, so I probably won't go into as much depth unless you would like me to. So the 1920 revised budget, so we take the additional revenues and anticipated changes, which Michelle just presented to you, and then we revise our budget to look at the actuals through January 31st. So then that would be considered now the district budget after we revised it. If there's a large increase or an interim has a qualified or negative rating, then we actually have to do this again in May for a third interim review. Let me make this a little bigger for you.
Is there a dollar limit on that, or just large?
I don't think there's a dollar limit on what would trigger a third. I mean, the qualified or negative really trigger the third, but if it's going to be impacting your next year, you definitely want.
And Michelle, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the things that we've always looked at other districts that I've been in is if your overall budget is experiencing like a 10% fluctuation or something like that, you're going to want to do it again because there's a big issue going on. I mean, is that kind of rule of thumb?
Yeah, I think I would like to do a maybe revise, just so that I can, I'm new to it, and I just want to flesh it out and get it as tight as I can. So I will probably do a maybe revise.
And so, but that's not required.
No.
Again, that goes back to what we've been talking about the transparency, making sure everybody understands it in a different style of budgeting. Because another thing that you have seen as a board for years has been when a grant comes in, for instance, we know that we're going to be expending the grant over 5 years, but the entire grant amount's been booked the first year, and then it shows up as carryover for 4 more years, which throws the budget off. What Michelle's been talking about is if the budget comes in, actually following the budget that went with the grant, applying the money over the course of the grant, so you can see the expenditure, the income, and the outgo, which is a much, much, much cleaner way of doing it.
Okay, so then moving on, in your packet on page 11 is the same thing. So this is kind of the synopsis of the budget adjustments for the second interim. So as you can see, the total revenues have gone down a little bit. Our expenditures have gone down just a little bit, as Michelle had already explained, and you can see the difference between the restricted and unrestricted. And then as we look at our excessive revenues, as you go down, unrestricted, we're negative, and now this is the change to fund balance. So that negative 2006 actually means that there's an additional 2006 in the unrestricted fund balance, because it's you're looking at the change to the fund balance, so it's a negative change. And then we have the other outgoes, the transfers in and outs that Michelle had already discussed. And so then we get down to our ending fund balance. So our ending fund balance is just 17,000 less than what we had projected at the board operating budget, which was first interim. And this is for our combined. The next page is the same bottom line numbers. This is just giving you more detail as to what each of those numbers represents. So if you had specific questions on what were the other state sources, it tells you there in the 8,000s. Or what some specific things were. Now we didn't print them out for you, but attached to the board agenda is the detail for this sheet, which is about 30 pages, and I didn't feel like printing out 30 pages for you, but that's the line by line detail that shows you this sheet. So then we get into the multi-year projection. Michelle had already gone over one version of the multi-year projection. And this is the version that we're most used to seeing. This is the one that we normally use, and we're going out 5 years on this because the board had requested we do 5-year projections. So all these numbers match the same thing that Michelle had showed us in the SACS forms. This is combined, so this is restricted and unrestricted together. Goes by just major object levels, certificated salaries, classified salaries, and as Michelle pointed out, they're going up because of step and column and some of the adjustments that are made. So we look at our total deficit here, going across, and if you look at it, you'd say operating deficit, wow, we're doing good, until we look to those transfers to other funds, and there is a list of transfers, correct?
Yeah, on the back page of that.
On the back page of what those transfers are to other funds.
So Jeff up a little bit with the classified summary.
She did say that the pre-vet quality analysis.
Well, I get that, but over 5 years, you're anticipating that no one's gonna retire?
No, I did not build attrition into the multi-year.
Nor did we build in having to go up to minimum wage twice in the next year and a half. So then again, remember, current year, that deficit of the $982,000, that includes that restricted carryover that got budgeted into expenditures, which made our expenditures look bigger than they were for just this year's revenues. But as we move out, we're looking at $508,000 deficit next year. Then the year after that, $179,000, and then $580,000. So we're looking at continued deficit spending, which we would call this the structural deficit built into our budget. Okay, so now I click on this as criterion standards. Now I go back to this. So part of our first interim is we have to certify with criterion standards. So we do have a positive certification on this second interim report because we're showing that not only are we fiscally solvent for the current year, but for the next 2 years going out. There are a couple of standards that weren't met, and that's the funded ADA for the current or two subsequent fiscal years has not changed by more than 2%, and it has. And then projected enrollment for any current or 2 subsequent years has not changed by more than 2%. And as you know, as we've shown on our enrollment before, we do this on our enrollment. So everything else is met. I recall last time, Angela, you had questions on where do we make these met, not met check marks, and this is actually the software does all of this, and it tells us that yes, we met it or we didn't meet it. So that's the state is basically saying that yes, we have met all of our checks for this.
So where it says not met on projected enrollment, it's just saying that you,
It's changed
you
more than
met,
2%.
you missed the guess.
Right.
So you said it was gonna be this, but it actually ended up being a different number than
Correct,
that.
greater than
More
2% difference.
2% difference, okay.
Yes. I apologize for having to click back and forth between these. But so that's where we stand currently. Now the second interim, as of January 31st, did not take into account any salary increases for any groups, other than the original budget contained a 1% increase for all groups. So currently, we're still in negotiations with both groups. The impact on the budget of the potential agreements being reached wasn't shown in the second interim, but given the current offers that the district has for both groups, this is what it will look like. So we're looking at, for current year, negative 1.6 decrease in fund balance. Why not? Zoom, sorry. And these are in your packets also. Now remember, 800,000 of that is carryover, so we're looking at about an $800,000 deficit instead of the $200,000 deficit. And then going out to the next year, the district's last proposal to DNTA was a 2-year proposal. So taking that into account, on the second year, we're looking at a $1.5 million deficit for next year. So what that does to fund balance, or what everybody tends to call reserves, is basically we're overspending. So 1920, we would be actually dipping into what the board has designated as reserves, not just the available fund balance. The next year, in 21-22, we would eat up almost the majority of all reserves except the 3%. The third year out, we would be into our 3% and we would have a negative certification. Now granted, the assumptions that we're making for 2 years out, 3 years out, we know they're going to change. Whether they change for the better, whether they change for the worse, we don't know. We use assumptions based on what school service and FCMAT tells us. They base their assumptions on what the Legislative Analyst's Office says, the Department of Finance, and the Anderson School of Economics from UCLA are their 3 major contributors. So pretty high-powered people are coming up with the assumptions, but they are assumptions. So as we get together and have our budget discussions and have a budget planning meeting, we will have to look into doing something with our budget for next year in terms of reducing or hopefully eliminating a deficit.
So you're assuming the STRS and PERS increases in the years?
Yes.
And are you assuming new hires and retires?
No, we did not assume
And you're not assuming either the minimum wage increase in those years either?
Correct.
So if you were to assume those in there, it's gonna look probably grim?
Well, we know the minimum wage increase, the classified
Right.
salary, classifieds are gonna go up. We know that. Attrition, the only attrition is next year, we knew that we had 3 people. So, and Michelle pointed out that she had taken those out for next year on the certificated side.
What about the insurance, health insurance?
The health insurance would come under our 3,000s, but we have benefit caps for our employees. So if the health insurance goes up, that's not affecting our contributions. Now, what is going up for us is liability insurance. That every year because of the new legislation that allows people to sue school districts till age 40, I believe, or within 5 years of remembering that they were abused when they were in school by a school employee. So basically, I could go to LA Unified now and say, I went to a psychiatrist, I was regress. I just realized that my kindergarten teacher had done bad things to me, and I could file a lawsuit against them. So liability insurance, of course, is now going up, and because they're getting big reserves for big lawsuits.
So let's face it, what it's gonna be. Health insurance is gonna go up, at least $3,000 is gonna be on our backs again. Hard decisions have not been made in your administrative overcost or your raises.
HR 2389 is the forest reserve money that we used to get, and the board had just always put that into reserve. We just to have additional reserve.
And that isn't happening.
We received it in 17, 18, 16, 17, 17, 18.
So some years it goes up, some years it goes down, some years they haven't funded it, so it's not a continuous stream.
Yeah, the legislation said in perpetuity for the Forest Reserve Act, and then Congress stopped funding it. And so every once in a while, you can get a group of the Forest Coalition will go back and try to get something onto a trailer bill.
You got something within the last couple of years.
Yes, nothing nearly to the amount, I mean, we used to get millions of dollars from it.
And a few years ago, those millions turned into, I believe, 76,000, 75,000.
No, we received about 400,000.
No, I'm saying a couple years ago.
Couple years.
The payment was 76,000.
But we haven't received any of those this year.
It's frustrating. And you guys got yours, and we're still sitting here after a year. It's frustrating.
I don't understand, Marshall, we got ours.
Did you guys get your cost of living increase this last year?
No. No,
In your contract? You didn't get any increases in your salary over the last 3 years?
I got step, which was built into my contract, like the teacher has step.
Do we want to know the details about this? About how some of you jumped all those steps coming in, right?
But there was no cost of living for admin. We don't.
You readjusted the salaries when Mr. Kissinger came on board, did we not? Did we not readjust the salaries when Mr. Kissinger came on for the other administrators?
We took the current salary structure, and I can go over this with you. I'm more than happy to meet with you and go over it. Okay.
So, are there any questions on the second interim budget adjustments? Any questions? Okay. Did you have a question?
No, I was just,
Okay. You didn't get a motion on this?
Yes, it would be a motion to approve.
Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion to approve the budget revisions.
Second.
Okay. Anything you poll, please?
Preferential vote? Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mrs. Greeno?
Yes.
Mr. MacArthur?
Yes.
Mrs. Faulkner?
Yes.
Mr. Margarino?
Yes. Then we're done with that. All right, let's move on to Uncharted Shores Academy, second interim budget report.
That you guys are just thrilled to hear more budget stuff.
So for new board member, my name is Sherry Simpson, I'm from Uncharted Shores Academy. We have met years ago. Do you remember? Good. And I am the co-director at Uncharted Shores Academy. I run the Early Learning Center, which is right down the road, with 56 wonderful little TKK and first graders. And Margie Rouge over at our main campus with all the big kids. I'm just here tonight to introduce a little bit about our enrollment, because as you guys all know, our budgets are based on enrollment. So we're ending the year very strong, a few more students than we thought we'd have. We're about 270. Margie's explained before, our increase comes from our homeschool students. And our increase in homeschool students was partially because we had some parents that didn't want to get immunizations, so we have to meet with them. We actually have a homeschool teacher that almost meets after school in the evenings to accommodate those Del Norte County families so that we can educate them. Our school can't grow anymore because our facilities are full. We did an enrollment for next year in February. We didn't advertise much, so you may or may not have heard about it. We're full for next year, which is good because then when we do our projected budget, I believe we, at the end of our enrollment period, we have a couple of openings, I think 1 or 2 in 4th grade and 1 or 2 in 5th grade, and we might be able to squeeze in 1 or 2 more homeschoolers. But bottom line is we're pretty full. And so that's a good thing for us. We have had, in the last few weeks, a few kids move out of what we call our onshore program, which is where kids come to school, and they've moved to our offshore program, which is where they do home study. And anyone want to guess why? I can probably leave that pretty open-ended, but parents are concerned about health and spread of the disease. We don't know if they'll come back to us next year or if they'll stay home, but they've gone home for the rest of the year.
Right now they're keeping their places.
Yeah, we're holding places until we know.
Yeah, apparently, yes, this has been a big thing. I mean, just today, because of the proclamations that we were talking about, and we had several of our families that flooded to home study, and I was dealing with getting that after school from the campus. We are on independent study anywhere, so they can move off. This is optional to go to classes, and so they want to move off and study. So this is affecting, because we're going to probably have to have classroom teachers who are teaching all day, then have to do home study.
So we've got a few minor problems too. I have told our staff. We have 1 staff member retiring, but most of our staff seems happy and says they're coming back next year, which we're happy about because I think all over the nation there's a teacher shortage, and recruiting good people to move to Delaware County can be tough. So we're happy that our teachers will return, and we're really happy with our teachers. We've had some kind of cool things happen at our school that don't happen to us often. We had 1 student who won the grade level with the spelling bee, and that's always fun. I mean, it's fun. I think every child that goes to that spelling bee is a winner, because I was the kid that studied for the weekly spelling test, and I only knew my words until Friday afternoon, 1 minute after the spelling test, and then I forgot them. And so these natural spellers just, to me, are amazing little kids. We really encourage our kids to go out in our community and learn, and I'm so glad Mrs. Cup is still here. We had some kids as young as 1st graders, or kindergartners, that took home golds at 4-H presentation day, and we're going on to regional and state. And for those of you that know the 4-H program, I think Mr. Napier, you had a couple kids pretty involved. We had a 5-year-old stand up in front of an audience and give a presentation. And those things are so cool to see that happening with our kids. We really stress presentation skills. And so we feel pretty good about what's going on around in Charter Shores. And our budget, like your budget's got some ups and downs. But we're happy to share that with you, and welcome to our new board member. And we always say this, but no one ever comes. You are our oversight agency. We invite you to come to our school and see what happens in our classrooms and in our school. We're pretty proud of things that are going on, and we have happy kids and a happy staff. And I don't think us standing here, we can explain our school or how we're a little different than a traditional school. But if you walk through our buildings, I think you'll see it and feel it. So with that, Miss Margie, I do the warm fuzzy stuff, and you do all the numbers. I just think they should give schools more money. Wouldn't that just take care of so much?
That's right. If we all want money, that's exactly right.
It's hard.
Okay, so basically, we bring this, to you the whole time, with the original approved budget, like you were just saying, the approved working budget here, our year-to-date actual, this is what we've actually expended, and of course percent remaining, which to me, since I'm trying to make sure that everything comes out right, I kind of look at this and make sure that we're at about the 50% mark, because we're in January, so I look at that. But an interesting thing, we have something different this year, and that is we have more in restricted. We've always had just a little bit of restricted coming in our way, except for some big things now and then. But this is the big thing right here. This is just that little 9,000 number. That is our new food program. So we're getting some money in from that, but we're spending out about as much as we get in. So it is costing us some, but we're so glad to be feeding the kids, although it's amazing what restrictions it comes with, because we had lots of donations before that kind of fed the kids anyway, and now we have to pay out for the same thing, but whatever. Anyway, so.
And Debbie Kravitz has done an amazing job for us. You
Yeah.
guys should love her as an employee.
Okay, looking over, let's go to the final, this is all of our income, of course, and everything, and the final total revenues, there it is, that line. Okay, so our total revenues, if we look over here, it is at about, the amount remaining is, just above the 50% mark. And so we want to make sure that we have expenditures that also meet that. And so our certificated salaries down here, plus and stuff, anyway, there we go. Okay, so the certificated salaries here is at 45%, which is about what I would have expected, because we did have some added things that we had to do from our original budget to now, so mainly having to do with the food program again, that we needed to have people for, and so we had to pull out and some work on that. So got a little bit more expenditures than we expected. Then down here at the employee benefits at 48%, about the halfway mark, which is good. Okay, and so it's going down. And the other endings, balances. The books and supplies, of course, we only have 25% because we always spend most of the services and other operating expenditures at a very, very low amount, because we have expended money that we expect to get in our pre-development loan paid back. And then we will be having, money going in for paying for a lot of the things that we needed to pay for as we're working towards that idea of building on our land and all of that, and that's going to take some years, but the pre-development phase right now is kind of scrunching us as we are trying to go through that. We've had a lot of engineering expenses and things that we built in, so we have very little left here that is going to be floated over with the loan coming in, and we've had to continue with our charter school capital, little loans coming in as we are going through this phase, and we're expected to be reaching out by the next time I report to you. It should look even better. So anyway, let's go down to the next thing here. The total of the other outgo and stuff like that, we often, the district, what we're paying to them often comes out at the end of the year, which is why it looks like we have a lot left, but we will be spending that out and everything. And of course, it includes what we're paying for. We have the three basic areas. The other, let's see, the special ed, the all other, and the special ed, of course, and this revenue to other elements. Anyway, this one is just basically the first one, our oversight fee that we pay. And then, of course, we have a huge amount that goes into the special ed that we contract with. And then this is the amount that I had budgeted originally for how much we're going to have to spend out for that food service beyond what we get back from the state. And we think it's going to be about that. We are here in the restricted funds. We have spent out about 11,000 so, and we've also spent out about that much in our own, from our regular general fund. So it's coming out about even. 50% from the state that will be reimbursed, about 50% that we're spending out. It should come out to about 20% or 50% of it being spent now. So probably about, out of 20,000. So the final numbers. Where we have to. This part, I don't know how to explain as well, as you know. But are there some questions about what we have up here?
Do you have any questions, Jeff?
No, not really.
You're looking good.
So, Charlene, just so you know, the board's review of charter school budget is basically checking for mathematical accuracy. The charter school is an independent charter school with its own board, and so our responsibility is just simply making sure that the numbers add up and there aren't any glaring questions. And then the board will recommend it to take action to accept, not approve.
Any questions from the board? Any
It's
questions?
really nice when we do things late at night and everybody's having a question. We'll bring energy drinks next time.
Okay, no questions? You wanna take a motion?
I will move to accept the Uncharted Shores Academy Secretary.
No, it's not your budget, you're just.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to
Thank you.
consideration and possible adoption of the district initial proposal for negotiations with Del Norte Teachers Association. Carmen Cox.
So before you tonight is our Sunshine District Sunshine document, so you'll need to adopt this evening. That's okay.
Sorry, could you repeat that again?
So this is our district sunshine document for the 2021 school year for the Norte Teachers Association, so you'll need to adopt this one this evening.
Any questions? This is just adopted.
So is there a place where we can see the whole agreement and understand more how these changes would
Yes.
affect the whole thing? Because I'm not comfortable that I know enough to say, yes, these are good ideas or not.
So bargaining agreements are on the district website,
Okay,
so I can show you where.
okay.
Go up a little bit. Retirement. Address the retiree plan cost for hires happening after 9/11. So, what does that mean on 6?
On the retirement program 6, it means we need to look at the fact that the health medical plan retiree cost is uncapped at this point. So right now, you pay we pay $10,700, right, towards when you retire. That's an uncapped benefit, and we pay the entire amount. So it's $22,000 per retiree, and it's over $500,000 cost to the contract. So we've had this up here before, a couple of years ago, to try and talk something through about, how do we get to the place where we can address that cost. Because of course it's the cost of your contract, so it impacts anything we can do.
So it'll only be for new hires,
Right, yeah,
so everybody else will be grandfathered.
right, yeah. So, any other questions?
Questions? Can I get a motion?
I move to adopt the district's initial proposal for negotiations with DNTA.
I'll second.
Second? Opposed?
No.
No, not opposed? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm gonna abstain.
Abstain? Okay. Close it? Thank you. Okay, we'll go to the next one, so stay there. Limited term employment for summer work, Colleen?
So this is our summer work, this is our custodial work that we bring on every year, and this is limited term because it's for the summer work that has to happen, and there's not enough custodial staff to do all of the deep cleaning that they do, and tearing apart the classrooms and refinishing all the floors, so we bring you this every year to approve some extra 6 custodial and 6 maintenance specialists. for the summertime, beginning in June and ending in August.
Is this enough people? I
Is
know
it
we're
enough?
6.
It would probably be enough if we could actually get enough to come do it. Is that a fair statement?
He's 12, we're at 6.
I mean, he would say, no, it's not enough. I know, because they always want to, they want to do more than what they're able to get done in that amount of time.
So,
But
Marshall, you said, what do we mean if we can't fill them? Some years we fly them and we don't get enough applicants.
The maintenance specialists, we didn't get any applicants last summer, and I think we had one the summer before. The custodians, we usually get most of the.
we usually get those.
So they have to have certain levels of ability.
Yeah. Well, we typically, our custodian folks that come on are usually employees that work during the school year. And we've had several that do it year after year for the custodial piece, because it's,
Well, they used to have painting crews. They used to have painting crews, and beginning teachers used to paint because they didn't have.
a summer, yeah.
Is that still offered to certificated to?
No.
To paint, no.
Or any other job?
Well, so if it's classified work, we're on a merit system, and so to be hired for that, you have to actually test for it. You have to pass the test, you have to go through an interview process, be in the top 3 in the rankings, and then interview for that, and select from the top 3.
It doesn't preclude a certificate.
Oh, no.
No,
Not at
absolutely
all.
not.
No, you could come work as a maintenance specialist or either one.
So, if we do this every year, what, is it in the budget already? Or is this additional money?
No, this is budgeted.
It's budgeted.
It's
So
in the
I just am curious, we don't, I'll go to approve the limited term employment for summer work. Second.
And I can please poll.
Frank vote?
Yes.
Mrs. Maisy?
Yes.
Mrs. Greeno?
Yes.
Mr. MacArthur?
Yes.
Mrs. Faulkner?
Yes.
Mr. Margarino?
Yes. All right, let's move on to elimination of certificated instructional coach position. Arlene?
So, we had an instructional coach this year that moved over to the Dean of Students position at Crescent Elk, so we opted not to backfill that position, and now we're asking to eliminate it. For the rest of this year, it's a savings of $68,852 to restricted Title I funds, is where that was funded out of. Our form doesn't allow you to add the second year on there, so if by removing this position, it's a savings for the 2021 school year of an estimated $81,314. So of course it's estimated because it's a vacant position, so it would depend on who we hired. So we're requesting to eliminate this position, and we'll not refill it for next year.
You're not gonna fill it?
No, it'll go away. It's gonna go
Can we
away.
do that 4 more times?
Yeah.
And that's the currently paid for out of Title I.
Title I funds, yes.
So I am curious what this position was intended to do. Are we losing student services by eliminating this
So,
position? What was it?
Mrs. Samples was hired because she was math and science support coach. And so part of her thing is, part of her job was to work with Ray Ferry in the adoption of science curriculum. They're doing that now. They're continuing to do that work. Mrs. Ferry and Mrs. Samples are doing that work, but they're just having to do it from administrative positions, so.
I have a question. So one, like I know the code book Sarah was specifically for math and science, but we also have a lot of new teachers. So with one less coach, is there a plan for how we're going to be addressing like supporting new teachers or newer teachers?
Well, we still have our existing coaches to help with those, and those have been assigned, and we've talked about a variety of different ways to support the new teachers, because they are providing a lot of support to new teachers, and they do tell us that part of that retention part, they stay because they've had some support from new teachers, because veterans can only do so much because they're doing their own classroom. So, and it's a lot to manage your own classroom and provide the support that a brand new teacher needs.
Because there used to be a program, wasn't there, to help the teachers, and then the state.
Yes, that program still exists. It's called induction. It used to be a beginning teachers system. It was BITSA is what they called it. Now it's induction. And there used to actually be funding from the state to provide that. Now there's not, but we're still mandated to provide it. But it's a different type of support because it's more classroom day-to-day things. They meet once a week, the mentor and the new teacher. But the purpose of that is really for them to clear their credential. So it's not quite the same. A lot of the questions the new teachers have are more nuts and bolts things of, where's the copy paper? And where's the, those kinds of things that they need support, and ongoing instructional support. Because again, your veteran teachers can't leave the classroom a lot to go watch and observe and, provide timely feedback.
So is the state requiring us to use the induction,
yes,
their program, or just have a program?
Those programs have to be approved by CTC, the credentialing program, so those all statewide have to be approved through them. And we could provide our own, but
So
again,
we could create our own, but then we have to go through an application and approval process.
exactly. Those have to be done in December, and you have to have a university attached to it. It's an involved process. I've looked at it, because Allison and I have talked about it quite often.
And
but
so the induction's going through HSU for our local
no,
government?
Sonoma.
Sonoma, thank you. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So. Okay.
Any other questions? Can I get a motion?
I will move to approve the elimination of certificated instructional position number 718.
Second?
Second.
Get the poll.
I would guess.
Linda, this one?
Preferential vote, yes. Mrs. Vacy?
Yes.
Mrs. Greener?
Yes.
Mr. MacArthur?
Yes.
Mrs. Faulkner?
Yes.
Mr. Margarita?
Yes. All right, elimination of certificated teacher position. Ms. Dawn?
So looking at the Crescent Oak Middle School numbers for 6th grade, next year they're anticipating 136 fifth graders coming in, which right now there's 6 6th grade teachers, and that's a ratio of 22.6 students. And going to 5 teachers brings the ratio to 27.2. And we have a resignation for this particular position that's at Crescent Elk. And so we will actually move a 6th grade teacher either into this position, or by contract they can take another vacant position in the district. So we eliminate this one because there's nobody in it, and we will move a 6th grade teacher.
Any questions?
Yes. So, how many positions do they have at Crescent right now?
I don't have that.
For the 6th grade?
Oh, there's 6 total.
So there's 6 total?
6 total. We want to remove 1 6th grader,
Okay.
6th grade teacher. Right?
Okay, yeah.
And so then the ratio for student ratio today would be 27.2 per class for the 5 teachers.
Okay, but I thought you said you were talking about moving another teacher out of Crescent
Well,
Elk.
no, we have, okay, so we have a social studies teacher at Crescent Elk who is resigned. That person is going away. That's this position.
That's this position, okay.
We're going to move a 6th grade teacher to teach either social studies, or they will move to a K-5 program because they have the option to do that.
So it's not a 6th grade teacher?
It's a 6th grade teacher that'll move.
It's
Yeah.
not a 6th grade teacher resigning?
No.
Okay, that's
Correct.
the confusion.
So there will still be 5 6th grade teachers.
Right.
And so we're still keeping the ratio at 27?
It'll be
After-
27.
After we eliminate this one and do whatever moving, the
Right.
ratio will still be 27?
Yes. Again, it's enrollment projections today, so, it's always hard to tell.
So, I'm just curious, this actually does pertain to me when I was at Crescent Elk, this happened to me. Do you have a 6th grade teacher that has a social studies credential?
We do.
Oh, okay, that was my
Yeah.
question, because the opposite happened where I was teaching history.
Oh, yeah.
And they got rid of my position, but I have a multiple subject.
Yes, yeah,
So
no, we
that makes
actually do. That was the first thing I looked at, like, ooh, who we got?
And the beauty of that is sometimes we get surprised at the beginning of the year, which is why that 2% sometimes can wiggle into the projections.
Oh, yeah.
Where all of a sudden, we've got 30 or 40 kids that show up, or 20 kids that show up, and now it raises the numbers above where we can handle them. And so if this is the case, we can take that 6th grade teacher, slide them back into 6th grade, and then
And
hire the social studies.
And I don't want to say this to hurt Jen's feelings, but of all the teachers that I would easily be able to replace its social studies, because there's many of them. And I don't mean to say
I
that
have a
back.
master's degree though, so
I know,
I'm
well, that's true. That's the same. So,
Okay, discussion, well, that's it? Any questions?
Move to eliminate the certificate teacher position, number 124.
Second?
I'll second.
Yes.
Frank, you vote?
Yes.
Mrs. Lady?
Yes.
Mrs. Reno?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mrs. Faulkner?
Yes.
Mr. Madrina?
Yes. All right, discussion, possible action. I got remove that, okay?
Already did that.
Remove that, discussion planning.
Future agenda items.
So I do just want to bring up on discussion planning, and I think this is a timely thing to bring up. I would like for you not to respond, just simply because this is information that we're gonna have to talk about at planning. Governor Newsom just issued some new guidance.
Just now?
Just now.
Oh, jeez.
I just got new guidance, that says that meetings like this, where we have people in the audience who may not be able to socially distance themselves by 6 feet, or board members that are sitting close like this who are uncomfortable and can't
I was
socially
just
distance.
thinking that literally this afternoon. I was like, how would you do this in Brown Act?
They are now relaxing the Brown Act.
Thank God! Sorry.
No discussion, Angel. They're relaxing Brown Act, so it may be possible to Zoom into a board meeting as long as the Zoom is available for the public.
Thank you, Lord.
So we'll talk about what that looks like.
Thank you, Governor Newsom. Sorry.
Okay. And there are a few other restrictions that are in there too, and I'll be sharing those with staff and you as well.
No, it might be already too late.
Are we having a study session? Have we figured out a date?
No, that's what I want to talk to you about
Okay.
tonight, is could we set a date?
So that's gonna be
I'm
on.
gonna be out of town.
This is the rescheduling from Monday to
Yes.
Yes. I'm gonna be out of town on Wednesday and Thursday.
Normally, you're going to be good to go for a meeting.
Or a.
How does a study session not violate the Brown Act?
It's open to the public.
Why would it violate?
Well, do y'all meet?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't take
It's
any
open to
action
the
on it.
public.
And it's open to the
It's
public.
open to the public.
I just
Agendized
asked.
meeting.
Yeah,
I don't know.
so a study session is not a regularly scheduled board meeting. Regularly scheduled board meetings, well, it could be. Regularly scheduled board meetings are typically perceived as board meetings that happen on an adopted calendar. They can also be a board meeting that's noticed 72 hours in advance. A special board meeting or a study session can be noticed as early as 24 hours in advance. Emergency meetings can happen sooner, but it truly has to be an emergency. If a study session or special session is called, then you agendize items. Really, the only difference between a special or study session is kind of the format of how things are done. And in both of those sort of meetings, there's no public comment on items off the agenda. It's only public comments on items on the agenda. So as long as it's duly noticed, as long as the postings are flown, and as long as the agenda is put out, and there's been at least 24 hours notice, you're good.
So you're having a meeting, and it's an open meeting.
Sometimes we do have.
I've been this
Okay.
board meetings.
I just have never known. I know you
So
guys.
like the interviews, you could only comment on the people
The
that
interview,
you
yeah,
interviewed,
that was a
because
great,
that's the.
yeah,
expected.
that was a
That
great
was
example.
that was that special meeting, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so let's get a date here for that study session.
Jeff?
You have to
What
be more
is this?
specific.
Yeah,
More
which
specific,
one?
please.
Yeah, okay, but.
That's me, I guess.
What's the timeline you see out of the meeting?
Well, we're going to need to, I would like, prior to budget adoption, definitely, we probably should do 2 sessions. The first one basically is to, well, originally we were going to go over where we are right now because it was prior to second and third, but now you know where we're at right now. So looking at, for current year deficit carrying into next year, we need to get the board to set, what are our priorities in terms of funding for next year's budget, so the staff can get together, look and see, is there some things that can we shift things around in the budget to make some things work? And then if we do have to look at lessening expenditures, what are the priorities that the board has set that no, these are the important things, we're not going to touch these, and these other things, and then we can come up with a list and give you some guidance and amounts in terms of if we do this or if we do that.
So you need 2 sessions?
I would like to have another session probably in May, right after we get the May revise from the governor, because then we'll get a better idea of what the budget will be.
And I think we need to another talking point or discussion item that you can have at that point. For the second one, Tom should also have worked through a lot of the LCAP ideas. So you should see how the LCAP is impacting the supplemental and concentration dollars, along with the main budget.
All right, let's look at the calendar. I know next week I'll be gone Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I can do Monday.
So I know one board member can't do Monday.